Simon Richardson went for what looks like a very muddy cyclo-cross ride this morning, and now I've got to clean his bike. First things first, we're going to need a bucket of hot, soapy water. Right, if you had access to a hose pipe, which I don't right now, ideally you'd hose this bike down to get all the mud off the down tube, the tyres, the seat tube, etc. But not everyone has a hose pipe, so we're going to have to get stuck in and get our hands dirty. This is why it's important to clean your bike when the mud is still fresh, so it's not dried on and caked on where it's really difficult to clean. One thing that you shouldn't be tempted to do if you don't have a hose pipe is head to your local garage and blast your bike with the jet spray that they've got there. It might take less time, it might be easier, but you're going to blast grease out of anywhere that your bike actually needs it. You might see the pros do it regularly, but those guys have got pretty much unlimited resources when it comes to new wheels, cables and chains, and they've got mechanics who are going to dry their bikes and make sure that they're fully prepared for next time. Before we get in with our bucket of hot soapy water, just going to take the things like the Garmin and size water bottle off his bike so we don't get mud, grease, dirt on those. Right, I'm going to start at the top of the frame, clean the frame first, then I'm going to have a go at the drivetrain, then I'm going to clean the wheels. I've got a couple of sponges. I've got one clean one that I'm going to use when I've got the bike pretty much clean. I've got one pretty grimy one that I'll use to get the majority of the muck off at first. Let's get started. Loads of mud accumulates under the saddle on a cross bike, so make sure you get your sponge right in there and clean that up. If you've got a bike stand, it might be worth putting your bike on that to clean it. It's just a bit less awkward trying to maneuver around if you do that. The logic behind starting at the top of your bike when you clean it is that the water drips down and kind of loosens the dirt off on the lower half of the bike. Not worried about getting it sparkly clean right now, just worried about shifting the majority of the dried on dirt. Get the down tube where most of the dirt's going to accumulate. Give the pedals a bit of a soak just to try and loosen any dirt that's going to be stuck in there. Chain rings on this side have picked up a load of mud, so just loosen that off too. Cleaning your cross bike is probably going to take a couple of buckets of water, so time for me to go and fill up. Right, we're ready for stage 2. What you might notice if you've been on a particularly wet and muddy cross ride is that your chain is pretty polished because the grit and the water get in and just remove all the grease out there. So it might be that a really strong degreasing product isn't actually necessary when you clean your cross bike, but we still need to give the chain a good scrub to get all the grit out so it doesn't wear the other components down. Mr. Richardson's all-time favourite WD-40. This is just going to blast a bit of the grime out of the chain, and I've got this for the mechs. First up, give everything a bit of a scrub just to get any last bits of dirt out. You might need to get in and actually pull stuff out with your hands. Jockey wheels accumulate a load of dirt. Best way to get this out is to push it out like that. You're probably going to need to do that on both jockey wheels and on both sides. So don't put too much force on your rear mech, but just give it a bit of a nudge. It's especially important to get all these little bits out because they're the sort of thing that bigger bits of dirt and grass stick to, which means that when you put the pressure on out of a corner in your next muddy race, that's the sort of thing that makes your rear mech snap. Now I'm going to give the chain a quick spray. Sorry, all WD-40 haters. That'll be enough just to work in. Leave that to soak for a second. Got my mech cleaner now. Just going to spray in there. Okay, I reckon the WD-40 has done its job. So just going to get in and scrub the drivetrain. Start off with the outer ring because that's what's there first. It's got no chain on either, so it's going to be a bit easier to get to. Like everything on a cross bike, bits of leaf, mud and grass are going to get stuck in there. So try and scrub in there a little bit with your brush if you can. Get the inside of the chain and the back of the outer ring too. You can see the chain's already pretty clean, which is just from the kind of exfoliating effect, I guess, of riding in dirt. Good time to check for any damage to your chain and chain rings too. That's the side plates of the chain done. Going to whack it onto the big ring so that I can clean the inner ring too. Get in up behind there and just clean this part of the crank. Mud can and will get anywhere and everywhere. Also a good moment to give the front mech a scrub. Again, try and get in just to shift any bits of dirt and grime that have decided to get stuck. Now it's time to get onto the cassette. When you're cleaning your cross bike, you don't always need to take your wheels out, but we're going to have to this time around because there's loads of little bits of grass and leaf that are stuck deep inside the cassette. Still worth giving it a scrub, just to get any superficial bits of dirt you can actually get to out. With your drivetrain scrubbed clean, get your old dirtier sponge and just work that in to get the last bits of mud out. Just run the chain through your sponge. This will soak out any bits of grit. Shiny, clean chain. Round 3. Now that we've done the drivetrain, which is really the big part of this job, it's time to take a look at the pedals. Pull these bits of grass out. Then get them with a brush like that. Just try and loosen the mud off. Try and get rid of all the dirt. Any dirt that builds up in your clip mechanisms is going to mean that it's more difficult to clip in and clip out. Muddy cross tyres are probably the one bit of your bike where you really will miss a hose pipe if you don't have one, but no other option, just going to have to get in and scrub them. If you're on rim brakes, make sure you get the brake surface really clean. I also like to scrub the tread, as it just gives you a chance to check for any thorns or gashes in your tyre that you want to pick up for the next ride. Next up, I'm going to get his spokes and the hubs. I'm going to stay clear of the disc brakes though. Kind of soapy water and disc brakes might make a bit of a squealing sound next time he uses them. That's just going to be annoying. Just a quick rinse of the spokes. So these are clinchers, and that's why I'm able to give them a bit of a scrub with a brush and soapy water. If you're using expensive tubs, I'd actually avoid doing this. I'd be as gentle as possible with them. So maybe get your sponge with some clean, non-soapy water so you don't damage the cotton sidewalls. And once you clean them, dry them up straight away so that they don't get any rot, because tubs are expensive and rot damages them. Right, so that's all the moving parts on the bike done, and I think we've got most of the mud and dirt out of any of the kind of closed up nooks and crannies. So I'm going to give the frame one final going over. You should always use black bar tape for cyclo-cross. It hides the mud better. If you don't have a hose pipe, you still need to rinse the bike after you've cleaned it, so just get a bucket of cold water and throw it over. I'm also going to get in with a sponge and clean the disc brakes with this kind of clean, non-soapy water too, so that they don't squeal next time he uses the bike. Just rotate the pedals backwards, rinse that out, rinse that out. Done. With cross bikes, it's worth one final check over just through the cassette and all the moving parts, just to make sure that they're clean, dry, and they've got any last bits of kind of leaf, grass or mud out of them. Remember that the cassette had a load of stuff in it, so start off by popping the wheels out and taking a look at that. With your wheels out, put your bike somewhere that isn't going to damage it. If you're not on disc brakes, it might be like that, leaning against the wall, but if you are on disc brakes, you don't want to pull the brakes without the discs in them, so I'm just going to lay this gently on its side. With the cassette, I've got an old GCN t-shirt, and I'm just going to get the edge of this and go in between all the sprockets on the cassette, which should get out any last bits of mud. Also a good opportunity just to give the frame a quick dry down with the wheels out. Also, you can get in really close and inspect the mech on this one. Okay, let's pop the wheels back in. Like we did with the cassette, it's worth getting into the mechs and the pedals and just making sure that any bits of dirt that were there are not there anymore. Now, it's just time to lube it before we put it away. When you're lubing your chain, too much excess lube is going to pick up dirt, so you want to get it just right. Lube the inside, be pretty generous, and then before your next ride, make sure you wipe off any excess. Then a quicker coat on the outside. Well, as you can see, cleaning a cross bike can be quite a lengthy process, but it's really worth getting it right. This prolongs the life of your parts, and it's going to ensure against any unplanned disasters out on the trail or in your next race. So, have you got a cross bike cleaning tip? Let us know in the comments below, and if you like this video, don't forget to like it. Now that your bike is clean, it's time to get out and ride it. Have you seen the videos in our Cyclo-Cross playlist? And if you'd like to subscribe to GCN, click on me.